So in this quick tutorial, I wanted to explain how to work the collar edge ribbing along the edge of your sweater. So this is the bottom, and then this is what's going to go up around your neck. And you can work the bottom ribbing with this exact same technique. I just wanted to explain this part specifically because you're going to work the first 4 or so inches of ribbing of the collar ribbing a little bit differently than you're going to work the rest. And that is just because these stitches are a little bit closer together that you're working into here, and these are a little bit further apart. And to do this, we're going to use our smaller hook. I'm using an L, and the sweater, all of it is made with Lion's Pride wool spun yarn by Lion Brand. So you're going to be attaching your yarn for your collar ribbing on the bottom right side of your sweater. So the right side when you're wearing it. Since I've already worked the right side, I'm going to show you this example on the left side. So I'm going to attach my yarn by working a slip knot onto the hook, and then I'm going to insert my hook and yarn over and pull the yarn through the slip knot. So that attaches the yarn. I'm going to tighten it down, and then I'm going to chain 6 and begin working into the second chain from the hook. So I'm going to work half double crochets in each chain, so I should end up with a total of 5 half double crochets. Okay, I have 5 half double crochets, and that first stitch that was our turning chain isn't going to count as a stitch. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And from here, I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch along the edge of this ribbing. So I insert my hook, yarn over, and just pull that yarn directly through the loop on my hook. So I've attached my ribbing there, and then I'm going to work 2 more slip stitches along this edge of the ribbing heading up. So we're going to do 1 slip stitch here and 1 slip stitch here. So what we've done here is 5 half double crochets and then a slip stitch, another slip stitch, and a third slip stitch. So these 3 we're just going to skip when we turn this over. So when we flip it around, so I flipped my work around, and the key to remember anytime you're working a even numbered row, so that's going to be the second row here, 4, 6, is that you're always going to have the yarn in front of your hook. The natural tendency would be to have it back here, but you're going to want it here to keep the join along this ribbing edge cleaner. So I have my yarn in front of the hook, and I'm going to skip all these slip stitches we did in the previous row. So we have 1, 2, 3. So I'm working into the 4th chain from my hook. And I'm going to half double crochet into the first loop. So here we have essentially 3 places we could work: the back loop, the second loop, or the first loop. And we're going to work a half double crochet into this first loop, just like that. And then we're going to do that 4 more times. So again, we're creating a total of 5 half double crochets. It can be a little bit tricky to see what's going on with the last stitch. So what we have here, if you kind of pull it out, is the first loop here, the second loop here, and the third loop here. And we're just going to work into the first loop. So it's a little hard to see, but it's actually just the first opportunity of a place to stick your hook. So just poke around there and work a half double crochet into that first loop. So again, we have a total of 5 half double crochets, and I'm going to chain 2 now and flip everything around. For these odd number rows, it's fine to keep your yarn on the back of your hook like you normally would. So I'm going to yarn over and work 5 half double crochets into these first loops on the next 5 stitches. And as we get to the back to where we're joining with the sweater right here, I want to point out that on the 5th half double crochet, again, it can be a little hard to tell where to work. We have 1 piece of yarn that is going underneath right here, and then 2 on the top. We're going to consider this one that's underneath the first loop. So I'm going to work into that and then finish up for a total of 5 half double crochets of this row. Now, because we're working along this first section of ribbing, we are going to slip stitch into the next stitch that's available along this edge. So if you see, we slip stitched here, here, and here, and we're going to slip stitch now into the first stitch that hasn't had a slip stitch yet. So that's right here, that's the fourth one. I'm going to pull it through, and then I'm going to do 2 more slip stitches. It's important to note that if you're working in the first ribbing, which goes along the bottom of the sweater, this is keeping track of where you're putting the slip stitches is a little bit different because you're working along rows, the rough edge of a row. So you need to just kind of eyeball the placement of attaching your ribbing in a way that will keep it evenly spaced along the edge of the sweater. And when you're doing that, you're going to want to just work under 2 pieces of yarn along the edge. If you stick your hook too far up, and there's say 4 pieces of yarn on there, you're going to get too bulky of a seam along this edge. And if you just use 1 piece of yarn right there, it's going to hang down and stretch out the sweater and the ribbing where they're connecting. So you're just going to put your hook under 2 pieces of yarn. Say this were the edge. You would find the 2 easiest ones to grab like this and work it alongside the edge right there. I know that's a little confusing because it's already worked right here, but I think it's just important to call out because the ribbing is worked slightly differently depending on where you are in the sweater. So I'm going to finish up this section right here of the first 4 inches, and then I'll show you how we're going to work alongside the rest of the edge of the sweater that will go up the front of your body and around your neck. So I've just completed this section of ribbing that's going alongside the bottom ribbing, and now we're ready to work the ribbing that will be along the edge of the sweater going up toward the collar. And I just did my half double crochets for a row 3, so it's time to slip stitch into the edge of the sweater. And because now we're at the body of the sweater, we have these nice clean tops of double crochets to work into. So I'm going to slip stitch into the first double crochet stitch here, and then I will do that 2 more times just like we did previously. We're going to slip stitch a total of 3 stitches, and then we're going to turn everything around, keeping our yarn in the front of our hook. Just like before, we're going to repeat a row 2 where we yarn over, work half double crochets in the next 5 stitches for a total of 5 half double crochets. And now we're going to repeat a row 3 where we work back toward the sweater with 5 half double crochets in the first loop. Okay, now this is where we're going to differ a little bit joining to the edge of the sweater than we did down here when we were joining the ribbing. And if you remember before, we just joined into the next stitch above the one we had previously slip stitched into. But what's different here is that we're going to join back into the same stitch we worked into before. So if you look here, our last slip stitch before we started heading out this direction was in this stitch right here. So I'm going to slip stitch back into that. The ribbing would be too tight. And then I need to do 2 more slip stitches, just like that, and then we will turn just like we have been and work a row 2. Okay, we completed row 2. Now we're going to work 5 half double crochets in the first loop back towards the edge of the sweater. And once again, we're going to slip stitch our first slip stitch into the same stitch that we slip stitched into before. So that's attached right here. If you're ever confused, just kind of stretch everything out and you can see that this is where the last one was attached. So we're going to slip stitch back into that one. And then we're going to slip stitch up 2 more. So you're going to work just like that all around the collar edge, and eventually you'll come back down on the other side of the sweater, and when you get there and you're working along the last bottom edge of the ribbing, you're going to do it just like we did before, where you're slip stitching only 1 slip stitch into each of the stitches along the edge. I hope that makes sense, and I can't wait to see your sweater.